I got there was a man sitting to the left of Kevin. And I thought...
And then in a completely empty row.
In a very empty row. And so I was like, oh, this guy's with us, I guess. And so I walked up and I went, hi. And I waved to them like they were together. And then Abby and Kevin at the same time were like, no, keep going. And I was like, oh, okay.
You just like, wait,
hi. I don't know you, but hi.
Are you all right now?
I'm okay. I think that might have been the onset of my perpetual sweating.
Perspiration.
My perpetual perspiration. I sweat through that entire movie.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ride Home Podcast. My name is Abby.
Hey guys, it's Caitlin.
We just braved another Marvel opening night. I've forced you to quite a few now.
Yes.
You're new to the Marvel opening night adventure.
I know. I would say that I've seen a decent amount of Marvel movies at this point, but still not a ton on opening night.
Yeah.
So it is a new thing for me.
We just got out of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, which I will have to say, unfortunately, has been getting pretty bad reviews.
Not good.
So
the tomato meter is dropping.
What is it, by the way?
It is now sitting at 48%.
48%. Mm-hmm. I do know that this is it's either the lowest or the second lowest rated Marvel movie of all time.
Oh, man.
I think knowing that the reviews were so low kind of put my expectations on the floor. Not that I really had any in the first place. As always, we are going to do a spoiler-free section and a spoiler section. The spoiler section will be noted by a little elevator music tone. But before then, we're just going to give our very basic reviews. And I promise all Marvel fans who are listening, we will not spoil anything. I promise.
No, we won't.
That isn't our only two caveats to that are if it's in the Google synopsis, we will read it. Mm-hmm. And if it's in the trailer, I will mention it.
Okay.
So those are the two things that I do not count those as spoilers.
Sure.
That being said, could you do us a favor of reading the Google synopsis?
Yes. Let me clear my throat.
Okay.
Because in addition to my perpetual perspiration, I also have perpetual heartburn. Hello? Ant-Man.
Do it again.
Ant-Man.
Do a clear tone, go ah.
It's like a choir teacher when they're like, do. Oh my God, my vocal cords are shredded. Ant-Man and the Wasp find themselves exploring the quantum realm, interacting with strange new creatures and embarking on an adventure that pushes them beyond the limits of what they thought was possible.
As always, we're going to start with you. What are your thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania?
Honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that it's one of the lower rated ones. Not because I thought it was an amazing movie, but the most recent Doctor Strange was significantly worse than this movie, in my opinion.
That one's so niche that fanboys love it, basically.
Yeah, okay. I understand that, I guess. So I didn't hate this movie. Mm-hmm. A little, I guess, background on my experience with Ant-Man is I have not seen either.
None experience.
Yeah, none. The experience is none. I have not seen either of the other Ant-Man movies. Right. I don't even know what they're called. I'm so sorry. Is it Ant-Man and the Wasp?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Haven't seen them. I saw bits and pieces of Loki.
Mm-hmm. As I had it on the TV.
Yeah, so I was not really engaged with that, so I didn't really see any of the references from that.
Right.
So I kind of went into this totally blind.
Which, you said to me earlier today, you were just shit, we never got around to watching them because I had mentioned oh wow, you have to watch the first two. Mm-hmm. And, I had a split second today where I was thinking I would be interested to see what somebody coming into one of the Marvel movies completely blind would think, and if they actually do succeed at setting up the characters and the story without having context. Mm-hmm. And so I was really interested to actually hear your perspective instead of catching you up really quickly and making you really fresh on the content so that you knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah, and I have to say I think that was a smart move for me in particular,
Mm-hmm.
because I am a person who really just takes a movie for face value. I know we've established that in pretty much every podcast episode that we've done. And B, because I experience movies like that, it does take me a while to process them. So I really don't think that me like cramming in the other two movies ahead of time would have really helped me.
I also feel like you would have been Ant-Man'd out.
Totally would have been Ant-Man'd out.
Because this Ant-Man is the other Ant-Man is the other Ant-Man. It's kind of all the same, like, visually.
Okay.
And even just the pacing and the storytelling and even like the tempo of the script almost.
Okay.
They're all very similar movies.
Okay.
I really am glad that you didn't see it. So you have kind of the freshest perspective that an audience member could have.
With that being said, I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a fun watch. I probably won't ever watch it again.
Right.
Not for any particular reason other than it just was a movie, you know. I thought that it did do a very good job of setting up the characters.
You didn't feel lost.
I didn't feel lost at all.
That's good.
Which, you know, especially with them being in the quantum realm, it's like very heavy fantasy. Yeah. And sometimes I can get lost in that type of setting.
Right.
But I really didn't at all. And I took it for face value. And it also really, really reminded me a lot of Star Wars.
It definitely had a Star Wars vibe, for sure. You're not misreading that at all.
I mean, like, it was, like, spot on so many things.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I have really not seen the quantum realm before, I was pretty impressed with it, I'm not going to lie. I thought it was really cool. And I thought that the idea of there being, like, different worlds within the quantum realm and different places and
like landscapes.
It was very cool visually for me. I wasn't like overwhelmingly impressed with the VFX, but the landscapes I thought were very cool. But the rest of the VFX I felt maybe fell short. Yeah, in my opinion,
I felt like maybe it was another like in the same vein as we talked about Doctor Strange earlier, where it was another case of like pressed for time. Like it felt like they cut a few corners here and there with the VFX where you had these like big, gorgeous, beautiful landscapes, but then like a creature nearby looks like it's from like a Disney movie almost.
Yeah.
And this is a thing that I've noticed with Marvel recently, especially as they've like expanded and used more and more like VFX studios. I feel like there's a lack of identity that comes with having so many hands working on something. We were just talking about the credits and just how many people are working on these movies. And I feel like when a movie is completely set in a fake world that is entirely made out of VFX, like there's nothing real.
None of that is real.
Basically, the only thing that's real in this movie are the human being actors. Everything else is created in a computer.
Right.
And I think the issue with that is there's a lack of cohesion in terms of like product quality, and there's also a lack of cohesion in actual design. Like it feels like one studio designed this creature and Marvel signed off on it and was like, yeah, that looks great, sure, we'll put it in. And then another studio created a creature and they put that in, and those creatures don't belong in the same world together. You know,
like they don't even look like each other at all.
I don't really feel like this movie had an identity, period. You know, and I feel like it was this incredibly generic action movie. And I think the number one reason why I'm assuming people aren't liking it, like why I'm assuming, you know, the Rotten Tomato score is so low, is because there's nothing really like to grab onto.
Right.
It just feels empty.
I felt like that too, and I felt there was multiple times in the movie where I was like, what is the even plot of this movie? Like what's actually even happening?
I feel like the writers and the directors of this movie tried to make us connect to Scott's family, right? So they were like, the heart and soul of this movie is Scott, and it is Cassie, and it is Janet and Hank and Hope. And what was so lacking was that none of these characters actually felt like they had a connection. Cassie and Scott were supposed to have this really like tight father-bond relationship, or father-daughter bond, and I just wasn't buying it.
Not at all.
Hope and Scott are supposed to be like in love and together for many years. Don't buy it.
Nope.
Hank and Janet are supposed to, be married. Don't buy that. Janet and Hank are Hope's parents. Don't buy that.
Yeah.
And so it felt like we had this like piecemeal cast that almost felt like they had just met each other.
Yes, I was going to say, it felt almost like each of the members of the cast were just individual people who were not related or connected to each other in any way.
Right.
And somehow just ended up on this little adventure together.
Also, did you notice that Evangeline Lilly didn't have dialogue?
Yeah.
What was that?
Is she okay?
I don't know what it was, but it was like they would have this whole scene and then it would cut to Evangeline Lilly just like smiling and nodding.
Yeah.
And like no dialogue.
And just like becoming the Wasp and like being tiny.
Right. And it wasn't cut naturally or seamlessly into scenes. It was like they would they would say something directly to her and she would just like smile and nod, or she would look concerned.
Yeah.
Or she would look frightened.
Yeah.
It was so it
was like a
weird.
robot actress.
Yes. They've been doing it a lot recently on movies that have a lot of VFX. So for example, Brie Larson was in a movie with like all of the Avengers, right? She had never met any of them because she filmed all of her scenes on a green screen by herself.
Oh.
And this movie felt like that. Like it felt like when two people were talking, it was always like a one shot and a one shot. There was no camera creativity of like over the shoulder or together. It was very sitcom-y. Like it would cut from one person talking and then like they would finish talking and it would cut to another person talking. And so the editing felt very dry. The acting felt very dry. It felt like they weren't able to like play off of each other. And I think that and just a lack of good writing lent itself to just a really like empty movie.
Very lackluster movie.
Yeah. That being said, I think if you were to show this movie to like a pilgrim, they would like shit themselves. Like they would need heart palpitate. Like they would need like
they would need like trauma
they would
therapy.
need CPR. They would need trauma therapy.
They would have PTSD.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think there is a tendency for people, especially people who are like super duper Marvel fans, to really over criticize Marvel movies. And I think it's really easy to forget that these literally are just action movies.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like because Marvel has this weird balance of having movies that are capable of being nominated for Oscars and then movies that are this, it's so weird because of course you're going to think this movie is shit compared to Black Panther.
Sure.
Of course you are. But it doesn't mean that this was necessarily like a bad movie to watch.
Right.
Was it great? Absolutely not. Was it empty? Sure. But I've watched 1,000 empty... I mean, hell, there was a Fast and the Furious trailer before this movie and people were like, oh, yeah. Like in the crowd. We've certainly never seen one.
No.
But
probably never will.
Probably never will. But I can assure you that those movies are not great in terms of script, but people let it slide. And I feel like there's this weird line in Marvel where it's like nobody really leaves room for like the middle of the ground.
Yeah, I was like,
it's like it either has to be like miraculous or it's terrible.
Yeah, we have to cut people some slack because at the end of the day, you're right. These are all action movies. All of them. Every single one of them is an action movie.
Yeah.
So every single action movie cannot be an Oscar award winning film.
Right. What's really interesting though is that I feel like Eternals was a strange exception that they got like an Oscar-winning director and they got a brilliant cinematographer. He's the guy that did Banshees of Inisherin. And it was like setting up the most like Oscar-worthy movie. And then people didn't even like that. Right. So the bar has been set so high for Marvel fans that while I'm going to agree with reviewers and with a lot of people out there who say this movie is not great. Sure, it's not great, but you can't tell me that this was a terrible movie and that you couldn't enjoy it, laugh at it, think that it looks cool. I mean, it's Paul Rudd on screen. Like,
Right.
I will always pay money to watch Paul Rudd do anything.
Yeah, we love him.
Paul Rudd could just like read a newspaper for 20 minutes on YouTube and I would watch it.
He's just so precious and he's so fun to watch.
Yeah.
He's always so fun to watch. And I have to say, even though, like you said, the acting was pretty dry, he was great. I thought everybody else.
Well, there was one person.
There is one.
And he is on the poster, so we can talk about him.
So we can talk about him. Okay, I wasn't sure.
So Jonathan Majors plays Kang, who we were introduced to in Loki. And he plays kind of who is going to be Marvel's next big villain. So the Thanos of Marvel. He was absolutely captivating. And I know that this isn't my first introduction to Kang. Like, I've seen him in Loki before, obviously, but this is your first introduction to Kang.
Right.
What did you think of Kang, and specifically Jonathan Majors?
Well, I feel like I have to talk about them as two separate things because Jonathan Majors was incredible. It was funny because after the movie ended, I asked you if he was British. And you're like, no, I think he's American. But then you told me that he's a classically trained actor.
Yeah.
Like, he did a lot of Shakespeare, which makes a lot of sense. I don't know why I picked up on this and why this like stuck out to me so much, but his diction was crisp.
It was staged. It was stage-like, yeah.
Yeah, and I liked that.
Yeah.
I thought that played really well. He's a really interesting and complex villain. It's a very cool concept for a villain, I have to say. It's a very, very cool concept for a villain. And it's terrifying. And like, honestly, before this, I would say Gore the God Butcher was possibly the most terrifying villain. I think it might be Kang.
I think Kang is terrifying because of the possibilities around him. Gore the God Butcher was just like, he had a much spookier quality to him. And visually scarier. Because like looking at Jonathan Majors is nice.
No, and I should clarify. He himself is beautiful and nothing about him is scary. But
we both have crushes on Jonathan Majors.
We do. And we're only going to see Creed because of him.
Literally, we watched the Creed trailer and Caitlin was like, I want to see that. And I was like, have you seen a Creed? And she was like, no, but I want to see that Creed. But like, I agree. I think he's not only an incredibly handsome man, he pulls you in. Like, it felt like he was in the theater with us. And his performance was so subtle and so like every line he delivered was soft, which made him more terrifying and more menacing. And I just really appreciated his role. I will say something though about Kang.
Okay.
I think that based on my experience of watching Loki and watching this movie, I'm really struggling with Kang's motivations.
Okay.
I'm really struggling. I struggled in Loki and I struggled in this movie. I really love his performance and I love the persona of Kang, but I feel like I understood Thanos' motivations. And so like, I got why he was going there. I understand Namor's motivations. I got why he did what he did. Gore the God Butcher, I get it. I have such a hard time wrapping my mind around Kang. And I don't know if I'm like overthinking it or if it just is a lack of like good explanation. I really hope that they give us like a core set of motivations that you can connect to as like a human being instead of just this like godlike figure. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. I think especially for me, this is my first exposure to him. He's kind of just billed, like you said, as this godlike kind of all-powerful being.
Right.
And it's kind of like, but like, what made him be like that?
Right.
So maybe we just haven't seen that part of Kang yet, and maybe there's just more to come.
And I hope so, because again, Jonathan Majors is totally capable of whatever they give him.
Oh, for sure.
He's already proved himself. And so I'm not questioning his performance at all. I feel like that's just, there's something missing about Kang. Despite his incredible performance, very layered, very subtle, great performance, I'll still put Namor and Gore the God Butcher as better villains as of right now.
Okay. because we knew their motivations and they were more relatable.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I got it.
Are you ready for popcorn scores?
I'm ready for popcorn scores.
Do you want me to go first or you go first?
I want you to go first.
You want me to go first?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give this a very full small.
Okay.
I will never watch this movie again unless I'm doing like a full Marvel watch through.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason why I would ever watch this movie again. And I totally understand why reviewers are canning it the way that they are. That being said, I still had fun.
Yeah.
I thought there was a decent amount of humor that was actually funny. There were some that were not funny, but there was a decent amount of humor that was actually funny. Visually, it was very stimulating and appealing, and you know, your eyes always had something to look at.
Sure.
So I don't think I'll put it as like, oh my God, this movie's trash. It's, you know, smaller than a small. I'll say it's a full small. It's almost a medium. If they had just given us a better connection between our leads, between the lead characters, it would have been a medium for me, but they just didn't go there.
Right. It's a small for me.
Yeah.
But I'm happy that I saw it. You know, it was a fun experience.
How about this?
Okay.
How about I get a pirated copy of it and I edit only the scenes of Kang together.
Okay.
And then we watch
a Kang supercut? Okay, yeah, I would watch that again.
You're into that?
Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody, to the spoiler section of the podcast. I repeat, this is the spoiler section of the podcast. The only time I'm this serious about spoilers is when we're doing Marvel.
Because Marvel people will come for us.
Marvel people will fight us. So I'm going to say this 2 more times. This is the spoiler section of the podcast. You ready?
I'm ready.
Can we circle back to the Star Wars comment
we have
you
to
made?
Circle back.
Don't you feel like they ripped every single character and creature and look and feel and vibe from the quantum realm straight from Star Wars?
Yes. And that's literally like as soon as they got to the quantum realm, I started to kind of notice it at the beginning of the quantum realm, but really what the 2 big things that I picked up on that where I was like, this is literally Star Wars.
Yeah.
Was the scene at the bar.
It was the exact same bar that like Han Solo goes to.
Yes, with frickin' Jar Jar Binks. And there's like the little horses that kind of look like Jar Jar Binks because they're like slugs on the top.
Jar Jar Binks and Han Solo are never in the bar together.
They're not?
No, but it's okay.
But who's there? Jabba the Hutt?
Greedo?
I could have sworn Jar Jar Binks was at the bar.
I mean, there's a bar scene later, I'm sure, with Jar Jar Binks.
Okay,
so
I'm thinking of a different bar scene.
The entirety of this movie looked like it was Star Wars.
Yes. Okay, so the other thing was the fucking stormtroopers.
Yeah.
So Kang's little army, they're literally stormtroopers.
They were stormtroopers, but the craziest one is that there were characters in this movie that were exact replicas of Tusken Raiders. You know, the desert people that go...
Oh, yeah.
There were people with the eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And they had the same staffs. There was a scene where they were celebrating a battle and they were holding the staffs over their head. And I was like, are you fucking serious right now?
How did they get away with that?
It had the same mix of like humans and like creatures. And some of the creatures are like creatures and some of the creatures are dressed as humans.
Yeah.
Which is a Star Wars thing.
Yes.
Going back to my comment about having like a lack of identity, that really bothered me because I was like, you're really going to design an entire universe that looks like Star Wars in the quantum realm?
Yeah, it bothered me too. And I completely agree with you about the lack of identity because you had all these beautiful landscapes and I was like, wow, that's so cool. And then they just copied Star Wars. And so it was like, that was a little bit of a letdown for me.
Even one of the side characters was kind of like a jacked Princess Leia. Like she was wearing the slave Princess Leia outfit when she's Jabba the Hutt's slave. Literally was wearing that same outfit basically, but was like a jacked version of Princess Leia. I also felt like the cityscape where Kang like rules within the quantum realm looks like Coruscant, which is
Yes.
I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name, Star Wars people. I'm like a casual Star Wars fan.
Right. We both are.
But like it looked exactly like that city.
Even some of their like planes and vehicles looked like little fighters, like from Star Wars.
And they had laser pistols that everyone was shooting. I'm telling you, it was weird, and I'm so glad that you said something before I did, because you're even less of a Star Wars fan than I am, and like I'm not even that much of a Star Wars fan.
Right.
So like this is
upsetting. We take issue with all of those choices.
You know what upset me even more though than the Star Wars thing?
What?
The script was so overwritten that every chance they had to have a moment that felt genuine and like well written was always just blown up by a really stupid line. So the best example I can have of that is there's this really cool scene where Scott is trying to get this core that Kang is after. And while Scott is getting closer to the core, he starts breaking apart into like other Scotts. And I guess it's like all of the possible decisions he could make all in one place. And then as he's getting really overwhelmed by like millions and millions of Scotts, his daughter calls out on the radio and is like, Dad, I need you to come back to me. And all of the Scotts stop what they're doing. And they all are just like, it's Cassie, we need to help Cassie. And they all band together and they like lift Scott out of this like pile of Scotts. And I thought that was such a beautiful moment. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, what a great moment. And then a character goes, how is he doing that? And Scott, through a radio, just goes, because in every possibility, I'll always want the same thing. I'll always want Cassie. And I was like, homie, we got the point already.
Yeah.
It could have been such a good moment. And then they were like, oop, let me tell you what actually happened.
It definitely overdid it, and I felt like that happened a lot. I felt like over-explained a lot. It also like beat a dead horse with some of the jokes. Can I tell you the one that really bothered me?
What?
The joke. Cassie's talking to Murdoch or whatever he is.
Big head Murdoch, Humpty Dumpty.
Yes.
We haven't even talked about Humpty Dumpty yet. Okay, so villain 1 in Ant-Man.
Yes.
Darren, at the end of Ant-Man, was sent into the quantum realm, but he got a little jumbled up on his way down there.
Right.
And he literally becomes what everybody can see in all of human history as the picture of Humpty Dumpty. It's just a giant head with skinny little arms and legs. And I gotta be honest with you, having that character playing side by side with Jonathan Majors as Kang, I was like, what in the, like, this does not go together at all.
No.
It was such a bad joke.
It was.
The whole thing was a bad joke.
Every piece of him was a bad joke. There was a part where we saw his little tiny butt cheeks when they assembled him, where I was like, oh, gross.
And there was a scene where they like made fun of his legs and he was like, they're not little, and like kicked them. Which, like, it's funny. I get it. Like, it's totally funny. But like,
but it didn't go together.
It didn't go. Yes.
Like, again, the cohesion, the identity. It was like, do y'all know? Like, this is the same movie.
Yeah,
like,
no.
I don't know. And then there's the part at the end, like towards the end, where he's like, I don't know what to do, and Cassie's like, it's easy. You just don't be a dick. And he's like, but it's too late. I already am a dick. And she was like, it's never too late to stop being a dick. And it's like, it's funny, but it's also like bad. Like, it's also just like kind of cringe. And I think a lot of the script felt that way for me.
A lot of the script was cringe.
Yeah.
And I will say that not even, like, there were some scenes where the script was cringe and not even in a joking way. And can I tell you the worst?
Yeah.
Can I just ask you, who makes the device that brings them to the quantum realm?
Cassie.
Correct.
Okay.
When they get sucked into the quantum realm, what's the first thing Cassie says when they get there? Where are we?
Bitch, you made this whole fucking Hubble telescope. They made it like this whole complicated scene.
Bitch, you made this happen. Where are we?
I forgot about that.
When she said that, I almost just left the theater.
Oh my god.
I was just like, you know what? I'm done. I'm out.
It's time to go. Pack it up.
We're done. I think though both of our favorite lines was a line that we both misheard from Michael Douglas. He struggled a little bit with his diction. I feel like maybe he has dentures that don't fit very well because he kind of, you know how
it's a little mouthy.
Yeah. There was a line that he was trying to say the word beings. Mm-hmm. And it was when they got to the quantum realm and they were just finding out that there were sentient creatures and beings there. And instead of beings, we heard beans.
We did hear beans.
And so we thought he confidently said,
"There are beans here."
Intelligent beings. And both of us, literally, I'm not joking, at the same time turned and looked at each other and we were like, did you hear beans?
Yes, we were both like, did he say beans?
The script also was not doing Michelle Pfeiffer any favors because they just made her character be like the grand narrator of everything. Mm-hmm. And I thought the most annoying thing was that the literal movie poster is just a giant poster of Kang's face. Mm-hmm. And so we know Kang is there. We know Kang is the villain. We know Kang is who everyone's talking about. Mm-hmm. They had, I'm not joking, like 5 to 6 scenes where Evangeline Lilly would be like, Mom, what did you see down there? And Michelle Pfeiffer would just be like, I'm not telling. And then like the next scene, she'd be like, what guy are they talking about, Mom? I can't say. I've kept it for a reason. I've kept it from you for a reason. And then like halfway through the movie, the floodgates opened and she was like, back when I was here for 30 years, I was here doing this and then Kang came and then I did this with Kang and then Kang went away and then I was a conqueror with Kang and then Kang did this. And it was just like, she just talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and talked. Meanwhile, all I want to know is, did she fuck Bill Murray?
It seems that way.
There was a cameo from Bill Murray.
There was.
And I guess when Michelle Pfeiffer got stuck in the quantum realm for 30 years, Bill Murray was there, ready to scoop her up.
Apparently.
Ready to swoon her.
Yeah.
I thought his cameo was fun.
I thought it was too.
I thought he was a good fit for that cameo.
Yeah.
Bill Murray does live in Charleston. So if we ever see him out at a bar, I'm just going to be like, hey, Bill, did you fuck Janet? That does it for us this week. We are going to be back next week with a massive genre shift again. Mm-hmm. We're going to be reviewing one of the Best Picture nominees that we still have on our list, which is Triangle of Sadness. If you want to watch it before we review it, it is on Prime for rent. So if you want to watch it, I know some select theaters are showing like the Oscar nominees. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you can watch it from your home if you want to. We hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Hopefully it is not 80 degrees like it is here in the middle of February. But if it is 80 degrees, get outside and enjoy it. And we will see you guys next week.
Thanks for joining us on the ride home.